and welcome to the Culture Ward, where we dissect and dismember pop culture in all its forms. Before we begin, please take a second to hit that subscribe button and help us grow the channel. It really means a lot to us. And don't forget to like and share the video if you enjoy the content. Thank you for joining us once again for the weekly wrap-up, where we dive into some recent news stories without exerting too much effort. As always, let us know if there's any important news stories we missed. Now let's get into this. In 1938, writer Jerry Siegel and artist Joe Shuster were asked to submit some comics for an upcoming anthology magazine called Action Comics. Impressed by the strips Siegel and Shuster submitted, publisher Jack Leibowitz asked them to develop the strips into 13 pages for the magazine, for which they were paid $130, and for which they signed away the copyright to the new character they created. Siegel and Shuster's comic was focused on a character known as Superman, whose first appearance in Action Comics #1 made the magazine a rousing success. The character was influenced by adventure magazines and pulp science fiction such as John Carter of Mars novels by Edgar Rice Burroughs and Philip Wiley's novel Gladiator, both of which starred characters with powers very similar to Superman's. Thus, one of the most enduring, beloved, and iconic franchises that would ever exist was formed. Action Comics, which was initially an anthology series, would very quickly pivot to being a Superman-exclusive comic book. The following year, in 1939, a second periodical was launched, titled simply Superman. Since then, Action Comics and Superman have been continuously published without interruption, 87 years and counting. Since his humble beginnings, Superman has grown into a worldwide pop culture phenomenon that has resonated with virtually every new generation, in some form or another. More Superman comic books have been sold than any other American superhero character in publication history. Almost immediately, the character found his way into other media as well. The Adventures of Superman radio show began in 1940 and ran through 1951, producing over 2,000 episodes. Paramount Pictures produced a series of animated shorts between 1941 and 1943.
Up in the sky, look! It's a bird! It's a plane! It's Superman! Faster than a speeding bullet. More powerful than a locomotive. Able to leap tall buildings at a single bound.
And the first live-action adaptation was a movie serial released in 1948, starring Kirk Alyn as Superman. A feature film was developed a few years later in 1951 called Superman and the Mole Men, starring George Reeves as Superman. The movie was a low-budget B-movie, but it quickly paved the way for the television adaptation, Adventures of Superman, also starring George Reeves, which ran from 1952 to 1958. Many more incarnations of Superman were created in the decades thereafter, including the big-budget film adaptations directed by Richard Donner, starting with Superman in 1978 and starring Christopher Reeve as the titular character. 3 direct sequels followed that initial movie. This was the Superman I grew up with, and it's still hard, all these years later, to see anyone other than Christopher Reeve in the role. The last of the direct sequels, Superman 4: The Quest for Peace, released in 1987. And it would be nearly 20 years before another Superman movie was released. Superman Returns in 2006, starring Brandon Routh as the superhero. Then in 2013, Man of Steel was released as a reboot of the film series, starring Henry Cavill as Superman. Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice followed in 2016, although I couldn't watch this movie because I'm allergic to Ben Affleck. Henry Cavill returned again for the movie Justice League in 2017 and made a cameo in Shazam in 2019. Cavill had become something of a fan favorite over the years. However, when James Gunn was hired to reboot the DCEU, Cavill was allegedly fired for some reason. In any event, the DCEU's official reboot is set to begin with a new Superman movie titled, once again, Superman. And it will star David Corenswet as the Kryptonian superhero and Nicholas Hoult as his arch-nemesis Lex Luthor, and is heading for theaters on July 11th. There's a lot of pressure on James Gunn to deliver a hit, not just with Superman, but with the DCEU as a whole. For years, DC movies have been pretty hit and miss, with more miss than hit, I'd say, despite having some of the most recognizable characters in all of fiction. James Gunn himself has previously contributed to the DCEU with The Suicide Squad from 2021, and it was pretty good. And after his performance, writing and directing the entire Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy for Disney Marvel, hopes were kind of high that he'll be able to turn DC around and establish a worthy rival to the MCU. which, to be fair, should be a much easier target to hit at this point. Well, the proof of the pudding is in the eating, as the old adage goes, and we are getting close to that proof, as it were. Superman's premiere is only a few weeks away, and expectations are high-ish. However, there are some warning signs that Gunn's big debut is not quite the stellar win it needs to be. It's coming down to the final stretch until the release of James Gunn's Superman movie, which will also be the official kickoff of the new DC Universe franchise. Production has been airtight at DC Studios and Warner Brothers, with very few leaks, at least until now. As Superman moves out of the edit bay and starts to be shown to audiences, reports about the feedback to the film are starting to trickle out. One new report claims that test screenings didn't go as smoothly as Gunn and Warner Brothers had hoped, which prompted a series of changes in the form of reshoots and other creative tweaks. The only question is, were those changes for the better? World of Real has reports from sources close to the production of Superman who have conveyed that tensions are high at Warner Brothers as the release approaches. An early test screening allegedly, quote, received a mixed reception, which prompted a, quote, cascade of changes to be made to the film. The report goes on to say that the original cut of Superman was much more in line with Gunn's previous superhero films, like Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy and DC's The Suicide Squads, in terms of humor. However, Warner Brothers executives were not entirely sold on Superman's level of humor and had Gunn lessen that tone, including cutting numerous comedic scenes and beats. That seems to be part of an overall trimming of the film to reduce the runtime, a subject that has already stirred a flurry of rumors and a response from Gunn himself. According to the latest rumors, Superman has been trimmed down by a total of about 25 minutes. The report gets even more intense, claiming that one of Superman's editors was removed from working on the film mid-process and that the film has since been restructured. That meant an entirely new way in how the story was being presented to the audience, with some key scenes being moved around, while new scenes had to be added to bring the new version of the film together. Finally, a second composer was reportedly brought in to help the sonic score of the film better match the tone. At the time of writing this, Superman is allegedly set to get its next big test screening. It's being said that Warner Brothers executives are a tad more confident in the current cut of the film, and reaction rumors will almost certainly make their way to the internet afterwards. There will be a lot of fans who hear these rumors and won't wait on any substantiation to start freaking out, whether it's Zack Snyder fans who will love hearing that Gunn's trademark humor is being restrained, Gunn fans who will be upset that the same formula they loved in Guardians and Suicide Squad won't be intact with Superman, or DC movie fans who get triggered that Warner Brothers execs are once again meddling with directorial vision. More than anything else, it may be the worst look for the new DCEU brand that this is all sounding too familiar with how the DCEU brand ultimately unraveled. Superman wasn't just supposed to be a blockbuster hit film, it was supposed to be a sign of DC Studios moving forward with a new kind of confidence and assuredness that fans and executives could bank on. As the release date approaches, we're clearly not there yet. So, that's it. Superman releases in a couple of weeks now, and apparently, as of June 2nd, they were still doing reshoots and reconfiguring and re-editing and trying to make this movie good. So anyway, James Gunn's big debut coming up July 11th, this could kind of set the tone for the DCEU going forward. And like I said, he really needs a big win. They don't just need to make money, they need to make an impact. Well, what do you think? Do you think Superman and James Gunn will save the DCEU? Are you looking forward to this Superman movie? Let me know in the comments. As always, thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Bye for now. I hope to see you next time in the Culture Wars.